Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the training 4 of the Curator Tools and Outreach for the SobekCM for Curators and Collection Managers training series, which we've started this fall 2013. And I'm Lori Taylor. Also, Mark, would you like to do an introduction?
Sure. Mark Sullivan. I'm the lead developer and lead the development team at UF that's working on this.
And John Nemers has also been doing the trainings. And I don't know if John has a microphone connected. Oh, and John is typing, so it sounds like maybe not a microphone connected. Okay. Mark, you normally do this part. Do you want to go over it?
Sure. So this is the fourth part of a four-part training session. They'll all be recorded. They've all are being recorded or will be recorded, and they're all being put online. So that's the URL you're going to find them all at. The first one is the introduction to the overall capabilities of the system. The second one is submitting and editing resource files and metadata. The third one, which we also did, I think last week was the last one we did for that, was introduction to quality control and also discussion of serial hierarchy within the system. So, and the fourth one, of course, is the Curator tools and outreach that we're doing today. So all of these will be available on that YouTube site very soon.
And so what we're doing today is we're covering some of the materials that have been covered in the past webinars and in-person trainings as part of this series. And so as part of that, we're doing an introduction to SobekCM's Curator tools. This training in particular is really focused on integrated digital and physical collection activities. So looking again at the specific tasks and tools, but looking more at the far-reaching connections. So some of these are how do you approach your digital collections as part of your physical collection activities and using the specific tools and tasks for that. Some of that includes managing the collections, including editing the home pages, changing the images, adding child pages and collections. So how do you manage your digital collection presence that's part of the collections, but not just the collection items? And also with that, controlling the overall look, feel, and behavior of your collection. And then some of the tools and resources with SobekCM for managing projects, and not just a single project, but also as part of project portfolio management. And then talking about next steps in terms of outreach, evaluation. How do you assess if your digital collections are successful and what you're doing with them? And then integration with teaching and research in terms of opportunities for supporting your digital collections as part of your overall collection management, and much more. So today's agenda, we're starting with an introduction to the SobekCM Curator and Collection Manager tools, and then we'll be focusing on the project and production management using the SobekCM Curator and Collection Management tools. And then looking overall at the broader based holistic collection management concerns. How do you use these tools as part of the collection management you're doing for your digital collections and your physical collections overall? And then tools and more. So considerations of different activities that you can do as a curator and collection manager that makes sense for you using your digital collections and building into broader concerns. And so we're starting with the introduction to curator and collection manager tools. And then, oh, Mark.
Cool. So these basically tools that are pretty new to the system. We've added them. Most of them were added, I think, in the last several months. The Curator tools that we'll show you to start with. And these are tools really to completely impact the way your collection looks. So you can control the look, the feel, the behavior of your individual collection. So it's not really how do your items behave. We already have, all that stuff is already in the system. This is more of how to highlight your material within your collection, how to make the collection sort of act like you'd like it to be, and to have all the information that you'd like to go with your collection as well, sort of side by side. So this section is, I'm going to just step through demos of the different portions that we have. So Lori, if you don't mind popping back the desktop control. Okay. So, okay. So we're going to look at this collection first. This is just a training collection we used for our DLOC partners a while ago. So there may not even be any items in this collection, or there's very, very few. So if you're logged on and you have curatorial rights over your collection, you'll see these buttons at the top. So the first three really have more to do with production. So we're going to go into those in the second part of our agenda, part 2. And here we're going to show you all these admin tools that you get here. So it says admin view. It probably should say admin tools, but we'll click on it. And it tells you we're editing this collection group, which is named DLOC Training. And these are all the different options. So there's really a lot of options here. There's a wealth of options. So in a way, it's something you might just want to sort of chip away at and get comfortable with each portion. They're fairly well divided on different facets and different functions, really. So the first tab is a general tab. And this tab. At the very top of it is all this basic information about the collection. So this is the name of your collection, the short name for your collection, a description, and a contact email. So if you were to put in your contact email here, then anytime someone's in your collection and clicks like the Contact Us button, you would be included in the email that the system sends. So that's a good way as well to be sort of kept abreast of any questions people might have of your collection. So I'm going to just sort of show you what these different things are, the full name, short name, and description. If you're in UFDC or any other Sobek system and you have these different options enabled, like one option, if you click on brief view, this is actually the description. So if you, whatever you edit that description to be, this is where it will be reflected if it happens to be on the home page. So then you have the long name of the collection, which of course is what appears here and will appear throughout the collection. The short name is if you're inside an item. So the full name of this collection is something on the Baldwin Children's Literature Library. The short name is Baldwin Library. So that's what you see up in the breadcrumbs, is you see the short version. So that's all that you're controlling right here. You're controlling the name, the short version, and a description of the item, of the collection, sorry. The bottom part is collection visibility. So as one would imagine, this describes how visible your collection is. You can activate or inactivate your collection. It doesn't go away or anything, but inactive means that people won't be offered a chance to go see it. So it won't appear in the breadcrumbs. It won't appear in anywhere else really in the system. If the show in the parent home collection page is an option you can also enable or disable. So this is a good example of is the Baldwin we were just looking at. That's what these sub-collections are. So each one of these sub-collections is marked to say make it visible on the parent collection. So we do actually have a couple other collections that are part of this JUV, and they're just marked to not show. So it's really very simple. It just controls right here, which is one of the most visible spots that you can see it. We've also, in our recent changes to the main menu system, we have a sub-collections menu here. So again, if it's marked to be visible, it'll show up in the sub-collections here. So the collection button is what we were just looking at again in Baldwin. Each one of these things has a collection button. It's just a 50 by 50 GIF, and this is a place where you can upload a new 50 by 50 GIF if you have one. It'll just replace your collection button. So that's pretty clear, I think. The thematic heading, you'll only see this if you are a portal or system administrator on your entire set. So you probably won't be seeing this in DLOC or UFDC, but for those of you who have your own instance, you would be seeing it. So the thematic headings is a very particular concept, which is how we group things on our home page. So if you want the system to make the home page for your system, which is what this is all sort of automatically created out of the thematic headings. You create thematic headings through the admin pages, and then here you can just attach it to one. So if we wanted the DLOC training to appear under map collections, for example, we could click this here, and then anyone coming into UFDC would see this collection at the very top level. So that sort of makes sense.
Yeah, that's another great thing to note in terms of managing the collections in their entirety. So not just managing a single collection, but then how they present as a whole. And that's something at UF. We have so many different collections. The thematic headings, which were set up a long time ago, are something that are being relooked at for ways to do it better so that the homepage is actually more useful. But for people with their own SobekCM instance, they're a really awesome thing to use to give different presentations to users in ways that will interest them.
Definitely. Yeah. So this is some very general top level sort of controls that you have in under general. So the search button is much more specific. This is what type of searches are allowed within this collection. So if we go back and look at our collection, we'll see the only search we have is this very, very top level search. And you can actually turn this off as well. And then it will just say DLOC training. So the only search we have listed is this basic search. So we could tell it we'd also like to have advanced search with year range. Maybe we know we want this particular newspaper search or map search, and we want it to show an option to give us all our new items. So we can select all these different options, and then we'll hit save. And you'll see, close the old one, all these are now added. So we have a newspaper search, which is a very particular type of search. We have advanced search. We have the map search function. We didn't tell it to start in a particular location. You actually can tell it to start in Florida, the US. And at some point, we'll just have it so you can put in the coordinates where the search should start. And then view items was also, we just added that so we can see the items that are a part of this collection. So all of these things are controllable from the search. Essentially, it just says what should be exposed for searching. So we can turn some of these back off if we want. Hit save, and now you'll see again we have it very, very simple. There's only this basic search. There's no other searches involved. As I said, if this is like an exhibits or something and you really don't want to expose the basic search, or maybe you want to control the search box yourself, I think you can turn it off because we saw someone turn it off. Search. Oh, I think there might be an option for no. No, I guess not. So you should be able to turn that off, something we'll look at, and you end up with a page just like we have here, where there's no search whatsoever. It's just starting with this page that just gives you the title of the collection. Nope. Okay. So that's what the search does. These options are all controlling what options are publicly available as searches. So, I'm going to leave that one and take these back off. So if we go to the third tab, which is results, this controls what appears in your results or how they appear. So it controls the type of views that are available to the user and the facets. So if we come in and we look at this collection, and we just say view all items, we have these are two facets that are appearing on the left, language and subject topic. These are our options. We have brief view as our default view. We also have a table view and thumbnail view, and this works for searches and browses within the collection both. So that's what this controls. So you can see we actually have 5 different facets selected here. That's because with so few items in the collection, there's actually no metadata for subject keyword, spatial coverage, or material, I guess, or language maybe, some of these. So only the ones that have values display. So any one of the metadata terms that are in the system can appear here. So there's a lot that can appear. We limit it to 8. If you change this around, then you'll change the facets that appear here to the left.
And this is a really great thing to do when you're working with different specific projects and working with scholars and classes on projects. One of the things that we found, like with the Baldwin Library of Historical Children's Literature, the facets are very heavily used for people that are doing research on different publishers, research on different authors or illustrators. And so this really makes it much easier for them to jump right into research. And so being able to customize this at the collection level gives you a great deal of control as a curator.
Right, so here's a collection that's a thesis and dissertation collections of ours. And you see we've completely selected just ETD specific facets for the top 4. So we have the degree disciplines here, the different degrees, the degree abbreviation, I guess, and the committee members here. So basically you can take any data that is stored in your metadata and you can make that a facet for your single collection. And then this default view is basically just whether it starts out with as a brief view, or maybe your collection is very visual, so you want it to start with a thumbnail view like this. Then you would just be able to come over here and set it and say your default view should be thumbnail view. We'll say this is something that's going to change very soon. This says default results view. We're actually going to end up with 2 different options there. One will be what the default should be when you're browsing. So if a user clicks just view all versus the default it should be when searching. We've had some collections that people have asked, well, when we browse, we want it to look really visual and start with the thumbnail view. But when people do searches, we like it to start at the regular brief view that gives you all the metadata. So that's something you're going to be seeing change pretty quickly here. And these are just the different options. So if you don't want table view at all, you could turn that view off in your collection. Yeah, and now you see it's gone. So that's what the results controls. It controls this very top level, what facets appear and what kind of views are users presented with. I will say there's a third thing you can control that is not exposed in this yet. We hope to at some point, but you can also completely control which values appear in the searches. So if you, and that's again, like the ETD example is a really good one for this. And we can look at them. Oh, there's not called ETD. DCs. And here's a case as well of a search that they've customized it to have a year range search in their ETD searches. So if we look at their items, you'll see what they've listed here is, instead of seeing the usual things like publisher and data publication and all these things, we're seeing faculty sponsor, the student, listed as student, degrees, the degree grantor, the thesis division, area concentration. So again, this is actually completely customizable as well. So we'll probably add that to the interface soon, but if anybody would like to customize this, we can help you with that before it ends up in the interface. So, and that would just be saying, when I do a search in my collection or a browse, I'd like to have different values appearing than here, or I'd like it to appear with a different term in front of it. So that only applies, obviously, when searching your own collection or browsing in this collection. If the items are returned in another collection, then that gets to dictate sort of the way it appears and what values appear. So hopefully that makes sense. So the fourth tab is metadata. This tab is really about exposing your metadata, both for your public users as well as for harvesting. So we actually have two metadata browsers already established here. We have creator and publisher listed, and that's why we see creator and publisher right here. So if we click one of these, it gives you a list of all of the creators that are in this collection or all the publishers that are in this collection. So it would probably be better to look at a bigger collection like DLOC, where we have browse by enabled. We can click on country, and now these are values that appear under country within this collection. So it's also a good way to do metadata cleanup. I mean, you can see a few examples here where this really should be broken down. So by clicking on this, you can go to those items and you can clean them up. So it's really a quite useful thing to expose your metadata this way, just to give you a chance to look and say, well, this isn't right, this needs to be changed, etc.
And again, this is awesome working with faculty and working with students in classes, just to give them a sense of what's there. Because one of the things, like with DLOC, once your collections become huge, it's wonderful to have them be huge, but then people have questions and, well, what am I looking for? How do I get a way in? Can you give me some examples? And so this allows them to play around with the collection and get a sense of it, and that's super useful and productive.
Definitely, yeah, it's useful for both the public and for yourself, really. You can see here, just looking, we can say, oh, here's Dominican Republic misspelled. We can click on it, bring it up. We could then correct the spelling that's in this item, and then go back and keep doing that. So it's a really useful tool, both for the public to discover what's in your system as well as for you to do sort of basic metadata stuff. And again, you can select any of the fields that are in the system. If there's no values within your system, within your collection, it will just say there's no values. But these are, I think, all the major fields that we have loaded in that you should be able to select from. So one other thing is if you just enable it, even for a couple browsers, then you'll get these internal browsers. So again, I don't have many internal browsers because there's not much metadata in this collection. But this is I'm only seeing this because I'm logged on as the administrator of this collection or the curator. So a public person would just say browses and they wouldn't see this. So even just enabling a single browse for you will actually give you the ability to look at all these other browses that you have. And I'll show you maybe the DLOC example where we probably have a lot more. Oh, I'm not logged on. Well, if I log on, you'd see that there's a whole bunch more listed here because you could have up to 50 different types of metadata fields or something like this. So that's sort of a useful thing to do even for yourself, just to enable metadata browsing and to look at. So this is a nice way to really expose your metadata in bulk through the system to public users. But if you'd like your system to be harvested via OAI, the Open Archives Initiative protocol for metadata harvesting, that's what this field is for. So you can just click here, and this will enable your collection to be exposed as a separate set for OAI harvesters to come get. So this section is really something I don't necessarily like. If you want to use it, probably give us a call and we can help you with it just to make sure you get it right. But it's essentially a place where you can, if you wanted to add top level metadata into the OAI that's being harvested, you could put it here. So this is not exposed with the items, but when a harvester comes to your site, it will ask the site, what sets do you have? And when it publishes that set list, it can include any additional metadata you include here. So it should, as long as it's valid XML, you should be fine. If the system, not many systems that I know of actually use this, but we did have a case for it, and I wanted to put it here just in case it was useful for people. So this would really be metadata that describes the entire collection that you have.
But just using the OAI PMH sets are really useful for harvesting by some of the different open access repositories, helping promote your collections and materials, and then also for embedding a number of scholarly projects like NINES, which is for 19th century scholarship, 18th Connect for 18th century literary scholarship, and then a number of others, like Omeka has an OAI PMH tool for ingesting from it to pre-populate an Omeka collection. It's just a good way to help make those connections for use in classes and also to push your materials to the different scholarly resources as well.
So this is all metadata, is really how to expose your metadata. So appearance, we start to get a little more complicated sort of here because we have a lot of different options that you can do. So we'll just step through each of the sections. So this first part is really how to drastically change the look and feel of your collection. So we have different web skins within each system. So in this case, we have UFDC web skin. This looks this way because it's appeared under a Digital Library of the Caribbean web skin. So we have a lot of different web skins, and you can add them to any of your individual sites as well. So this was showing under UFDC. Let's say we want it to look like it's DLOC. We can just set it to say DLOC. Save it. Now you'll see it says Digital Library of the Caribbean here, and the colors are slightly different. So this is a way to say this one collection should always appear under a certain web skin. So this is also useful for institutional collections or for exhibit, something where you really want to give it a nice different feel than the rest of the collection. We can make a web skin for it, and then you can attach your different collections and sub-collections to use that web skin. So there you see we're back to the UF George A. Smathers top, and the colors are a little bit different here in our menu. So this is sort of taking a whole set of a design as the web skins. If you wanted to just define very certain differences and you wanted to use a custom style sheet, you can enable the custom style sheet here and you can edit it. So this is, you have to be good at doing style sheets, but you could enter all your different styles here that you wanted to use. And so this would be a style sheet that worked only for this one collection. And finally, in the custom homepage, here is a way to say, I don't want anything to be written for me. So nothing will be written. Everything will come directly from your custom page. And that's only for the homepage, but it gives you an ability to just completely override the homepage of your collection, I should say. It gives you a chance to totally override what otherwise a system would create. Obviously, that means you have to add your own hooks into things, like you need to put your own search box in there, and you probably want to link to your sub-collections yourself. But if you really wanted to not be constrained at all by the system, then you can use that. The homepage text, this is the text that appears obviously on the homepage, which is all of this text right here. And so, the first way you can tell that you're actually logged on with admin rights is when you hover over it, it turns gray, and you can click here and say Edit Content. So this is sort of the first way to change your homepage text. So if we wanted to just highlight this and say, let's make that bold, or maybe we'll make that some kind of orange color. So you just hover over your homepage text. You can make any edits you want right there. So this is the part that we have that's really under the admin view, is oops, I guess I'm already open here. It's different languages. So we're set here to use a default, which is the system default, which is English in this case, in our instance. And then we've already added Spanish here. So we can say, what this means, I guess, is if a browser comes in and the browser is set to request Spanish, because every time you browse the web, your browser is advertising what language you prefer to see the website in. So if your browser asks for Spanish, it would get this different Spanish one. You click View. There's not much Spanish here because we haven't translated it, but you can see the rest of the site mostly is translated. So in this case, we come in here and I can translate it all into Spanish, and then a Spanish user coming in would get directed to this. So we can have multiple home pages for multiple different languages. And this is how we're able to add it. Say if we wanted to add a home page for Dutch and we want to copy it from, should say English, we'll add that. And then we can edit this. Oh, it's telling me I need to save first. So I can save, come back in, and view the Dutch, and then of course edit the Dutch if I like here. So that's what the appearance portion is about. This part of the appearance portion is really saying, depending on what browser the user has, they should be given different homepage text. So we use this obviously for Digital Library of the Caribbean. When you come in with a Spanish or French browser, you're presented with the Spanish and French pages by default. The banners are likewise slightly complicated by the fact that we support multiple languages. If we look at DLOX, for example, let me log on here. Oops. Maybe we'll look at the Caribbean newspapers. And we look at the admin view, appearance. You'll see we have banners in Spanish and French and English. So this section, and likewise, we have home pages in Spanish, French, and English. So this section is to allow you to upload a new banner for a different language and then add it in. So let's go back to our example here. Maybe we have only this one image up, but maybe we upload another one and it's Arabic. We can click Arabic and then we can add it. And then we'd see it listed here as well. There's different banner types. The standard is the one that we're seeing in this collection. Like this, the rotating ones are the ones we see in, for example, DLOX homepage, where it's like this, and then we have a rotating highlight. So we have some specs for this that will link to the help page. I don't think we have linked yet. But to do something like this where you had a rotating highlight and a full top page, that's what we would use these homepage left, homepage right. That's what these options are for. So mostly you'll be doing the standards, adding those, I would think. So that's what appearance does. It allows you to change your homepage text, define your banners, and do all, and also, greatly affect your appearance with the web skin and custom style sheet. So this is sort of the biggest of controlling how the homepage looks. Most of that is happening right here. So the highlights section, this is something we're still just finishing. We're hoping to have it finished next couple days to expose this for you, to give you the right to edit it. But highlights are essentially this thing right here, for example, that highlight and rolls through. Another example of a highlight is a non-rotating highlight that you can have down here. If you have a standard banner and you add highlights, they'll just sit right down here. If you add multiple highlights to this type, they'll rotate through day by day. So every day they'll get the next highlight on your list of highlights. So it's a way to at least have it rotating a little bit and look a little bit dynamic when users come in on different days. So that's what the highlights section does. It should look a lot easier once we're done modifying it like we have the other pages. So the child pages, these are pages that sit underneath this collection that inherit the same look and feel as the collection. So let's say we're looking at our collection and we want to add additional data here. We have the ability to view items. We have these browse bys that we added as metadata browses. But we'd like to add some more information, maybe about the digitization process that underwent. So we give it a code. This is basically the URL code, what it'll look like in the URL. We'll give it a title. This is what it will look like inside the menu system. and then we can tell it where we want it to appear. So the visibilities are appearing directly on the main menu is one option. You can have no visibility, in which case people have to know the URL, or you link to it manually from any of the pages. But that's a good way to have pages that aren't sort of taking up space on your main menu bar. Or you can add it to a browse by section. So I'll show you the main menu bar first. When you select main menu, it asks you what do you want your parent to be. So we don't have anything on the main menu yet. We'll leave it as none. This will insert it to the top level of the main menu. So now we see this, it's been added. We can click edit. Let me go back. Let me hit save first and show you this. So you can see now it appears on the main menu. So if we click it, here's digitization specs. You hover over it, you can edit your content. Add whatever you like. You can use the word processing thing to increase the fonts, do bold, anything else you wanted it to do. And so now we've added a back child page related to this, sitting on the main menu. So this is a way to add additional content to your collection that's not digital resources. It's just additional data that you want to include right there and have at the fingertips of your users. So this is child pages. We've added this child page. I'm going to click edit now because I want to show you this screen. You see how we edited the home page, or the page I should say, of the child. But again, we support all these different multiple languages, so we wanted a way to say, I have a child page about digitization, but I'd like to present it in English, Spanish, and French. So that's where you come here, and you can say, I'd like to add a Spanish version to my page. You give the title in Spanish, and you can tell it to copy from the existing one, which was English. So now, this one child page is present both in Spanish and in English. We'll hit edit, and I don't think it actually saved it yet, so let's go back and save it. And if we look in here, the child pages, right here as well, you can see which languages you're set on. So this means digitization is offered as a child page in both English and Spanish source pages. So we can click edit again, and then we click here, and we can edit the Spanish. So we can edit this all right here. We can delete languages, of course, if you realize you no longer want to support Spanish or you didn't get the translation that we expected to get. We can click delete, and that will be deleted. And now we see it's only the default language. So we can add another one. And here, so you see them adding. So what we're also working on then is to allow you to say, I'd like to make this one a child page of another. So to do that, you would be able to, when you're adding it, to say test to another test page. And if you select a main menu, at this point you could select and say, I'd like this to be underneath the test top level page. This is not quite yet working, but we think it'll be working within the next several days. So that will give you the ability really to create a very deep menu structure for all the different pages you might have. And you'll definitely be seeing that appearing in DLOC because we have a lot of back pages in that collection. What I want to show you is also the browse by, though. So if your page is really something that's sort of a way to browse your items, like maybe we want to say topical collections, and so we've got all these different, within our collection we have all these other topical areas, we'll say. How about that? We're going to change the code to be something close as well. Having this be good English helps with your search engine optimization as well, so try to make it as close to the title probably as you can. And we'll say save. Oh, I think I forgot to say add. So let's say topic areas again. Topic areas. Browse by, we'll add it. Now we see it up here, good. Let's save. And now when you come to browse by, we'll see it listed here. So this is a way to insert a static page directly under your browse bys. And when you're here now, you'll see it's listed right here, and the list of public browses so the user can get to it. So it's a way to actually have a static page in here. And we have used this before for different collections. Like we wanted to have the list of partners browsable here, or we wanted to control what values appeared. We wanted to change the look and feel of this of just one browse. So that's sort of a nice way to really control that look. So this is what that's all the child pages does. It just allows you to add additional content pages to your collection. And the last tab that we're looking at here is sub-collections. So as makes sense, these are collections that exist underneath this collection. So we have this collection called DLOC Training. Maybe we wanted to make one particular for a particular day or for something else. So we'll say DLOC Train 12 maybe. DLOC Training, maybe it's just a different date. Give it a short, you need to give it a description. Again, we have the same options we had before for behaviors. We want it maybe to be active, and we want it to show in the parent collection. The different types that you have here are based on the type of the parent, so you can always add an exhibit. And in every collection, you can add exhibit and sub-collection, either one of these two. So we'll hit add and save. Oh, I think it probably opened it on another tab for me. Oh, there it is. So we can see the sub-collection got added right down here. I'm in view. Sub-collection. Oh, there it is now. Yeah, so there's our collection. We've added this sub-collection into it. So now, just as before, you could go into this sub-collection. And it says it's a collection. We could have added it as an exhibit if we'd wanted. And we have all the exact same abilities now in this collection that we had in the original one. So again, you can go through, you can add child pages to this. You can have a fairly deep hierarchy if you wanted by clicking here and affect the appearance of this. So it gives you an ability to really make a collection just to highlight a certain amount of your material. Because then it gives you a chance, of course, to create a home page and describe that material. So everything you can do here is logged. So we have a log of the activity, all the things you do. There's backups at every point. This is the only change that actually alerts us and sends us an email to let us know there was a new collection added to the system. So some of the changes we're expecting on this, I mentioned there's backups. I think we're going to have the ability to start rolling things back more. So if you make a change to your home page and you don't like it, there'll be an option to roll back to a previous version where you can select that version and then have that overwrite the changes you made. Just sort of a way to help people feel more comfortable making changes and knowing that they can revert to a previous version if there's a problem. So that was a fairly swift run through of all these different options that we have here in the admin screens.
Just a note, the child pages and the sub-collections are, again, things that are beloved and absolutely wonderful for working with teaching faculty and working with different classes. Because often they want to have total control over a small subset of the collection materials that they're working with. They want to be able to present them in a very particular way. And as they're working through it and thinking about it, some of the other things, like being able to make the collection not active so that they can still work on their sub-collection, create the child pages, create the context and the curation that they really want to have support for, and they want to use your digital collection materials, so working with you, but at the same time having control so that they can have the work that they're doing be private until it's ready for full release. So all of these are really awesome for some of the other curation and and collection manager work.
Yeah. So using them a lot internally as well.
Yeah, so now we're speaking about project and production management using the SobekCM tool. And so some of the things that come up pretty often in terms of concerns, a lot of journals have, and especially on-campus newsletters and other publications, have moved from being print-based, where then they used to be received by the libraries, cataloged, and kept in the print collections. Now those are moving to Born Digital, and in many cases they're no longer being printed. So Born Digital Harvesting and Ingest, thinking about that as part of how do you do your collection management when you move from handling the physical materials, managing the digital, managing them together, and managing them as they transition. So some of that can be thinking about more digital harvest list, scheduling to have the ingest process done, who's going to do that work, whether it's you as the curator or collection manager, or acquisitions, if you have a digital group that's doing it. And also thinking about other concerns like managing mixed physical and digital collections together. In some cases, it's pretty common with archival collections where you will have, with the archival historic materials, printed artifacts. But in more contemporary collections, you often also have things on floppy disks, zip disks, um, files on CDs, files on DVD. Uh, In those cases, those are often at risk because of the physical media for the digital files. And so it's a great thing to do to ingest them into your digital collections, to have a digital collection presence for that archival collection to help represent and promote the archival collections, people coming in and actually using your archives. But then in some cases, some of the concerns can also be, well, we have a floppy disk and it only has one letter on it for this huge 16 box, 60 box archival collection. And rather than having people, having a note like you can go and see this one letter online, um, that's great to do, having it online, but you may also want to do things like print out the letter so it can be included with all of the boxes for the materials so that the researcher who's using that archival collection can use them all together in the way that makes sense for them. And that can be a good balance. And other concerns often come up where it's a good idea to think about how you're managing the physical and digital collections together. For the UF folks, one thing that's really neat about having the IR with so much content in it, and so many thousands of theses and dissertations, so many thousands that are going to be added, you can browse through those and then look at the ones that are related to your subject collections. Like Dan Ragusan, who's on this call, is our African Studies curator and collection manager. And so he could browse through the IR at UF and then look at the theses and dissertations that are related to African studies, that are related to particular countries, particular concerns. And he could tag those so that they also appear in his collections, if that made sense for his collection management process, if that made sense for his users. So that's an option, and that's thinking about ways to bring different collections together and thinking about ways to connect them across. And that can be done with any of your digital collections. And so it's just an option in thinking about how you do production and then how you leverage the production that is done for integration. And Mark, are you going to speak about the tools in particular?
Absolutely, sure. So there's three main tools that we're looking at. The or I guess the first two we're looking at is the private items. So what's a good collection for us to use? Well, I could use this one, I guess. Um, so the private items lists all the items that are private within your collection. So that is if an item is public, which usually we make public at the end of the process after it's been, that's just our workflow. After we have uploaded the material, quality controlled it, done our final checks, we make it public. So a lot of times we're really interested in the private and dark items, because if you're tracking the progress of the whole project, then those are the ones that aren't quite ready or not done yet. So if we click private items, we can see this list of these are the two items within this title that are private or dark within this very small collection. So these were created, it tells you the last work was done 140 days ago. You can see that it is lumping the material up by title for you. So this is the case again where we're using that good serial hierarchy that we talked about last time. So both of these items are underneath this title. So this is really useful for looking at it. You can also do different sorts. It's quite useful to look at your last activity date, most recent first or oldest first here. Won't change too much because they're pretty much the same days. But that's a good way to look and see like what activity has recently been happening on my material, or maybe what items are in my collection that I haven't quite finished that I really need to get back to so I can make them public so that the users can get to them. So any of that material is here. As well, if you have comments, so if you're kind of wondering, you look at this and you're like, why is this item dark anyway? Well, I can put a note in here. This is to remain dark, and hit save. And then if we go back to that list, it should show up here, I think. Yeah, there it is. So your comments will show up right here. So it's a good way as well to leave notes for yourself to let you know like what's happening with these items. So this is just a really useful tool sitting up here under private items. obviously that's more for collections that are in process than something that might be complete. But the item count is something that's useful for no matter what kind of collection, whether your collection's complete or still in process. So you see different milestones. We actually have more milestones in the system by default. So let me pull up a different one. This is a collection that's in movement. So in this item, we have the total that's been added into the collection. We have some that have no work completed. So it's no surprise if there's no work completed that there's actually no pages or files in it either, because these items have not been digitized and put online yet. We have ones that have been initially image processed and scanned. These are ones that have performed quality control but are not yet online complete. And then we have the full number here that is online complete and a part of the collection. So you can see sort of the material as it moves up towards completion, the number of pages increases and gives you a really good quick view of where all the material is that's in process. But as well, even if your items are not in process, it still gives you this nice total. People often wonder how many pages are in their collection and want a good number like that, and that's available right here. So these are the pages, like individual pages for turning pages, and then these are the actual files that are in this collection. So that sits all under the item count at the top part, under this internal header, as we call it. And then the last part, which we haven't talked about yet, is the usage statistics. This is obviously always very useful. So these are statistics of how people have interacted with your collection pages, as well as how people have interacted with the items that sit within your collection. So this tells you on these dates we had activity, we had different views, different visits, and then the last two columns these are the title views and how many times the items in this collection have been viewed. So this is a collection that's still in progress, but you can see we're already getting hits on the items that have been completed. It's a really good way to get a feel of the usage of your system and whether you're reaching the people you're trying to reach with your collection.
Yeah, and for this particular collection, as Mark mentioned, it's a collection that's in process. And so the item count and the usage count, usage statistics are really useful for doing grant reporting for this because it's a grant-based project. But whenever you're working on any projects, just having the statistics readily available means you can also figure out, well, what should my benchmarks be and how am I meeting those? What do I need to change to better meet those benchmarks? And being able to check in on separate items, you can see what activity is going on. If something stopped moving through the process, why did that stop? What can I do to help it? What are the different concerns? And then as Mark's showing the top titles, obviously the overall statistics super useful for reporting. And this collection now has 1 million. So the top titles and top items give you a great sense of what items are being used. For you follow up with promotional materials, connecting with your research campus that are most closely affiliated with your institution. And then looking at, should I maybe do a promotional thing on this for Facebook or something like that for another type of blurb?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, you can see that's what all of these different options are. Private items, item count, and usage stats. So is there any other production tools that I should show here, Lori?
The tracking sheet.
Oh yeah. So this is all an integrated tracking system, of course. Let me try to find something here. Frogs. So if you're in any individual item, you can also look at the work history. This is the basic milestones, some of the same things we were looking at tracking at the collection level. And you can look at the history of that. So this is the history of this single item. It's rare that our history is so beautifully done as just a straightforward workflow where we never repeated any steps. But if you'd repeated things here or if you'd done metadata editing on this item, that would all be listed here as well. And then the other thing we have is we've just started adding it. We need to add a link to it, are these tracking sheets.
And these are really awesome. When you're working on like a collaborative project and you have different groups maybe distributed, where some of them a tracking sheet would be useful. And Mark's note says my audio is fading, so hopefully it's coming back. Um,
Yep.
the tracking sheets are really useful for different institutions, pulling physical materials and being able to track them through the process rather than having to create their own tracking sheets. These are just readily available. So one project that's going on with the Baldwin, it's working with, or it's thinking about working with a number of different historical societies to see if they could digitize the different related children's literature, early imprints, religious texts that they have. And each historical society will probably only have 5 to 10, but they'll have different volunteers working on the process. And so something like a ready-made, easy-to-do tracking sheet like this is really useful. And so if this is really useful for you, if you're managing a production process, either if you're managing it on your own as a collection manager or curator, or if you're working with others, this is already available in case it's useful.
All right, so if you walk through our digital library, you'd see a lot of books with these printed out stuck in them. I mean, one of the most useful things is just that it ties you back in to the actual digital object identifier within the system. But you can also put imaging progress here if you want. And we're creating a automated workflow thing where you can scan it to say, I'm starting to scan this item. If you wanted to link the item to a scanner and maybe to the hardware in which it was scanned as well. So this is all just sort of part of the integrated tracking system of it. Cool.
And did you want to pause to do questions, Mark?
Yeah.
So we're actually moving along now to using the tools in ways which I've been sort of jumping in and talking while Mark's been presenting as well, looking at using the tools for integrated digital and physical collection management. And then also, what do you do with it? One of the definitions of the digital humanities, of which there are tons and tons, but one of the ones that I find the most productive is digitization is getting stuff in digital form. Digital humanities is what you do with it. And so what you do with it, once you have your digital collections as part of your overall collections, you do outreach. You promote them, you evaluate. And so some of the resources that SobekCM provides for that, the usage statistics, which you've already seen, which are super useful, seeing which collections are being used, if there's a big jump in the usage. Also, people like to know that things are popular. So saying, hey, this has been used this many times, it's really useful. The new item RSS feed, there's automatically created an RSS feed for all of the different collections. So you can embed that on a LibGuide. You can also subscribe to it just to see what's going on, what's loading in the collection, check on new items. There's also the new item list. So with the views on the collections, which you can turn on and off, which Mark showed, you can view all items in the collection. You can also view all new items. That's a great way to give people a sense that this is a collection that's that's growing and changing, and also for you to check in and say, well, what is being added, and okay, this is being added. What can I do with this? Can I use this in a class? As a faculty member may be interested in this. Does this give me a promotion or outreach opportunity? There's always a need to create outreach and promotion materials, whether those are webinars, presentations, handouts. Handouts are extremely popular. And so looking at the new items gives you a sense of different things that you can use for creating those. And also, then there's always a need for assessing our activities and establishing evaluation criteria. Is your digital collection successful? Is your physical collection successful? What does it mean to be successful in this context in terms of, hey, this many people have accessed the collections online. These are how high our usage statistics are worldwide. Okay, but then how are they integrated with the courses on your own campus? Do your own faculty know about them? And we've struggled with this balance a lot at UF where, we promote to the world, we often get really good traction, but then in some of the departments, our faculty don't know about them, even though this is critical to their work. And so I'm trying to make sure we're doing enough outreach and promotion and we're doing it on all of the different levels and then figuring out how we can assess those activities. And so in addition to the tools, there are always considerations and opportunities, methods and resources for curators. So using the tools to build your digital collections and to build your overall collection management approach. So digital collections always need care and feeding. They always need some level of maintenance or support or your involvement. And that can be not through working with the digital collections themselves, that can also be through working on integrating and aligning them with your overall collection management goals. And then you can also build those goals into new opportunities and to building new resources. We almost always work in collaboration just because it means that we have more people to work with, we have more support, and it does, by collaborating, it does some of the work that we need to do in terms of outreach and promotion. So there are always collaborative collection opportunities, building new digital collections, building thematic or curated collections and scholarship projects as collections. So SobekCM, because of its super flexible interface and infrastructure, you can do things like supporting data sets. If you had a research data set for an archaeological project focused on a specific site, if you had a historic preservation project focused on a specific site, a literary manuscripts project focused on a particular text or particular author, all of those supports are already in place. And if you're interested in collecting materials from your faculty research materials, or working with them in classes, exhibits are extremely popular in working with classes. It gives people a way to think through, how do we use these primary source materials? What does it mean to create intellectual access? So much of the work that curators and collection managers have done for so long, creating finding guides, creating MARC records, creating ways for people to understand the materials that they have access to, creating that intellectual access so that people can have meaningful access and engagement with the materials. All of these are opportunities to extend your collection management goals and to grow your collections. So some of the examples of what you do with it, Freedom Summer is, and oh, escape out of this and show. The Freedom Summer digital collection is actually a new collection which is in partnership with Jana Ronan, who's the subject specialist collection manager for the African American Studies materials at the University of Florida. And she's working with the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program, which is a campus-wide entity. It doesn't report through the libraries. And so they're collaborating together to build a digital collection of the oral history interviews, which include audio, video, transcripts, and other supplemental materials based on the Mississippi Delta Freedom Project, which the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program has been doing for many years, where they actually take a group of faculty and students and researchers, and they go to the Mississippi Delta area, Sunflower County, and they do oral history interviews. So the oral history interviews are then available online. And so Jana's working with them on the curation, getting those digital files into the collection, making sure they have really strong metadata, and also using this project as an opportunity to strengthen the collaborative connections with the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program, which is also called SPOP. And so to build in their digital curation overall for all of their collections. Right now they have thousands and thousands of oral history interviews that aren't available online in their digital collections because that hasn't been part of their workflow. So their workflow has been on creating these oral histories, getting them used by classes and by researchers, but not as having them as part of a digital collection. So right now researchers often contact SPOP directly to get access to a single oral history rather than having all of them available online to help move the entire field forward. So SPOP is really, really interested in figuring out these workflows for digital curation, having it be an embedded part of their process where they create a new oral history, and then the new oral history is available online in the digital collections. And so they're working out those bigger workflow concerns, the larger collection concerns, through the focused work on this one particular project. And then another example, Planner's Punch. The digitization of Planner's Punch, you can see which is a wonderful, super important historic title, Caribbean literature, and all of the issues that are now shown on your screen are available through the Digital Library of the Caribbean, thanks to the digitization done by the National Library of Jamaica. And that was done in part through funding, which you can see the grant proposal here, by Leah Rosenberg, who's a Caribbean literature scholar at the University of Florida. So she wrote the grant in order to be able to support the digitization of the materials. and to have the materials then openly available online for everyone in the world, with the funds for the digitization going to the holding institution, which is the National Library of Jamaica. That's another way to think about how can we all work together better in the digital age. How can we, find funding at one place, find the resources at another, and then combine them together for our different needs. There's the Radical Women in Gainesville collection is another example. This was a digital exhibit, digital collection. I'm often teased that it's not an exhibit by our exhibits coordinator because it's not as imagistic. It's much more text. It's much, much more text heavy than a normal exhibit would be. But the Radical Women in Gainesville collection, all of the materials were digitized by a student. All of the text for the exhibit were created by a student in the Women's Studies program, and that was working with a faculty member in the Women's Studies program and then also working with the libraries. This is a really heavily used collection. It's a really well-loved collection. It's also now listed in many different databases, and so it's heavily promoted, heavily used, and it's just a great example of thinking, how could I partner with my teaching faculty to do something they need? Like this was an undergraduate internship and thesis project. So it gives their student an applied learning opportunity and something that then benefits my collections after it's completed. This is another really neat example. It's Diaries of a Prolific Professor, undergraduate research from the James Haskins manuscript collection. So in this, what the faculty members worked with with an undergraduate class. So the curators and collection managers worked with the teaching faculty and a full undergraduate class to work on the processing for an archival collection. And then from that, they collaborated together to identify different topics that needed to be covered, and then they wrote different papers on it that they presented together as a PDF, which is openly available online, and it's also available as print on demand. So all of the students who contributed to it, all of the faculty members, all of the curators actually have a physical copy of this that they can show to others, showing the value of doing research in the collections and giving something tangible to show for promotion and outreach. And it's available online, so they can always refer people to it as an example. And so, in thinking about this, in thinking about some of the things that what can you do with it, some of the other examples include Newspaper Cat. So thinking about some of the problems that you may have, Newspaper Cat came out by Colleen Zeal, and as a reference librarian working so often with students who needed access to historic newspapers, current newspapers, newspapers as sources, so many of them came to the reference desk, asked over chat, asked over email, and it wasn't easy to find, oh, you need a newspaper from Alaska that's a historic newspaper. Oh, you need to know all of the historic newspaper sources that are openly available from 1877. Some of those sorts of questions that weren't easy to answer with an existing database or resource. And so Newspaper Cat developed. And that Newspaper Cat is a record-only collection, so it includes all of the records for different newspapers that are openly available online and includes historic through current newspapers. And right now it has really good coverage for the US and more international coverage is being added. And what you can do with it in terms of promoting it, packaging it as these different projects, as these different ongoing programs, and this also helps people to your understand your work, the value of your work, and to then find ways that they can collaborate with you and suggest other projects. So one of the things I have listed here is a brief list of the digital humanities projects at UF. And just by having that list available, a number of people have come and said, hey, I want to do something that looks like that. And now I know that I can because you've given us that list to work from. So other things that you can do with it that are really exciting, integration with courses and with teaching. With the rise of online courses, one of the things that I know I have not done enough of, and I'm looking forward to doing in the next year, are integrating with the online courses. What Whenever we have an opportunity to integrate our open access digital collections, it's really phenomenal to have those embedded in the courses so that students not only can they access the materials and see them and work with them in the classes, and it connects directly to the teaching faculty's educational goals, but then the students can also share it with their family, share it with their friends, share it with their cousins and grandmothers. That's something that's not possible with the paid-only resources that come with different textbooks, that come with different databases. So the ability to embed open access online resources is really powerful. It's also really important in terms of reminding the students that the library isn't just a collection of stuff. You know, we're not just the databases, we're also the connector for it. So does this give us an opportunity to do webinars, presentations, remind them that we're some of the people that are part of their educational process, and that we offer a lot of other options. Internships, at UF, we have a number of bibliography courses, anthropology, bibliography, research practices, African studies, and we also offer other collaborative opportunities with our teaching faculty and with students. So one example, we have a Preserving History and Practicum course, which is for senior undergraduate history majors, where they come into the special collections, archives and manuscripts, and they actually get experience processing an archival collection, and they build some sort of digital project as part of their course. That could be a finding aid. It could be actually digitizing materials. It could be creating a video on some of the materials that they've done. This allows us to think through different ways that our collections can be used and to collaborate for greater overall impact. Um, um, Instruction and outreach, always wanted, always of interest. People love live instructional sessions and workshops. Webinars are also a really great option for balancing time and resources. And we have a number of different webinar examples and templates uh, for anyone to use in presenting on their digital collections. And these obviously keep being refined, but these are at first we found it sort of difficult to how do we present all of the different needs, all of the different abilities with the collections in terms of the different ways to view materials, and how do we also embed the collection manager, curator, context-specific information, along with showing the functionality, how users can use the collections and the different tools on the user side. So in working on that, we created a number of different templates that are now all available online, and some of these also have videos that go along with them. So the African Studies Digital Collections presentation was also a webinar, and so that video is online. The Florida Digital Newspaper Library, the webinar is also online, and the same for the Ethnic Newspapers database. And I don't know if Mark wants to jump in at any point, but some of the other options include collaborative opportunities, which I've been stressing throughout. But the collaboration can be different ways of growing the collections and creating digital scholarship projects through collaboration. That can be with other institutions. That can be with other groups at your institution, like the libraries working with the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program, working with museums affiliated with your institution, other groups that have collections at your institution, and others affiliated in the local area museums, other libraries, and research groups, and others. And you can also endorse, approve others, whether they're students, scholars, or other collaborators or colleagues, to have the user accounts, the MySobek or MyUFDC or MyDLAC accounts, and you can approve them to submit materials to your collection if you want them to be able to do that, to edit the metadata for materials in your collection, to edit the curator homepages. You can give them all of the different rights that you already have, if you're interested in doing that, to help grow your digital collections in partnership and with support from your collaborators for those different needs. And Supporting internships, I have internships on a lot, as internships are a really great way to work with someone else, especially if you're on a small team, and to think about how your collections are being used, what questions people have, and an opportunity to get more time and more support for the work that you're doing. And so for new opportunities, please share ideas, stay connected, share your success stories, and share the work that you've done with the SobekCM user group. We'd love to promote what other people are doing, how they're doing it, and share it with others. So you can also contact me. I'd love to help with that. And we're doing a lot more with data curation, especially with researcher data. So this is an example with the long-term monitored reef project. And so it looks like a digital, to us, it looks like a digital collection. So, but digital and data, the terminology is very flexible. Often what I call data, it depends on the field. Some people, by data, they mean more quantified materials, so spreadsheets, database I, exports, but often what people mean include a whole variety of materials, photographs, maps.
Right. I think this collection is actually going to have the data sets as well as a whole bunch of photographs also. Yeah, this is also an interesting case of because it's a collection that it's not being curated at all from the library anymore. Essentially, this is working with researchers in the Coral Reef Project, and those people themselves are now the curators of the collection. So they're able to go in here, define their own homepage, create child pages, etc. So it's really good also example of sort of pushing the curatorial tools out and creating child pages like this so that it's easier for people to curate their own collections, even outside the library.
Yeah, and that's a really great example of working together with others to build collections. And some of it, you'll be directly involved in, but you also have the opportunity to support users in building collections that build your overall collections. So how do you support students, researchers in growing your digital collections, your overall collections, with them doing the work for it? And that also fits in naturally with them supporting the digital curation lifecycle. And in some cases also, we do have purchase data that we're using SobekCM to manage with the IP restriction supports. And so we have a couple of instances where you have purchased GIS information or other data sets that the place, the vendors where we purchased them, they don't support the hosting of them. And we needed to have a place where we could manage them, we could support researcher access. And so SobekCM is also a great opportunity for that. And so more in thinking about how to do it for promotional planning, obviously you can do webinars, you can do internships, you can do all of these wonderful different things and activities, but it can be really overwhelming, and you can also forget things. Like, for instance, the the need for more, I have a need to do more outreach and promotion with faculty on UF campus, not, focusing on different faculty, different needs, different departments. And so one of the ways to make sure, and this also supports assessing and evaluating the success of what you're doing, creating a promotional plan for a full approach. So you can have an overall strategy and then planning for opportunities as they arise. We all know the importance of being tactical and being agile. So if you do have more support, being able to respond to that and change plans. So some of the normal things to plan for promotions, announcing new projects and new projects and milestones. If you have an ongoing grant, once you're half done, that's a great time to announce this much is completed. These materials are now online. Other activities and promotion, doing outreach for bigger picture connections in relation to collection development goals and plans. So some of the things that you might want to think about, do your physical and digital collections have a Facebook account? And should they? Should they have two? So physical collections for one and digital collections? Or most often it makes a lot more sense to have a single Facebook account if you're going to have one. If you should use a Facebook account to promote your collections or your project, how will you use it? Do you have a plan for posting regularly, at least once a week? Or is this mainly going to be a placeholder that then links to your main site? And so thinking about what should be the programmatic support for your digital collection, physical collection, promotion and support overall. What things should be done for only a short amount of time, and what's needed on an ongoing basis. If some activities are project-based and time-limited, how much time do you want to expend, and can you expend on this in a way to make it most appropriate and useful for promoting your collections? Right. Some of the things also to look at, is there a Wikipedia entry for your collections? Do you have a plan for creating one or improving the existing entry and updating, if there is an entry, updating the existing one on a standard basis? Or is that something that's great to collaborate with a colleague, with a teaching faculty member, with a student? Um, and so it doesn't show in the slides online, but we do have notes on a very basic marketing plan that we have available within the UF libraries. And it just notes a set number of things in terms of sending out releases whenever we get them, other things to check, checking the Wikipedia page, checking to see if you do have a Facebook page, if that is appropriate, and then planning on when you should update these, how often, and what type of time investment should be done. So in addition to the overall plan, always being tactical when opportunities arise. So promoting new items and milestones. If something comes up and it's exciting, hey, this is the first time we're collaborating in a class. This is the first time we've collaborated with an intern, and there's this great new project that came out of it. That's an awesome opportunity to promote it, let people know what you've done, and then people can also see it as a model for future opportunities. And again, using the tools in this frame of mind to think about new opportunities, checking usage statistics. If you see a huge jump, what happened and why? Checking the new item loads, checking the RSS feeds to see what's loading and wow, this item's really, really exciting. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe I should ask my community to give me some more information. Hey, here's this great photo of campus and there's some people here. I mean, if I post that to a Facebook account, will our alumni help give me feedback on when this photo was taken and who are the people in the photo? It's a really great opportunity to think about how to promote as these opportunities arise. And so that also connects into how to do it for assessment. Uh, it's really useful to send out surveys on a regular basis, or annual, and depending on the project and the different collection loads and what other surveys you're doing, you may want to include questions on your digital collections with a standard survey that you're sending out on your physical collections. You may want to have one just on your digital collections. Uh, Doing the survey both gives you information back from your users, but it also helps promote the collection. So people say, I had no idea. I've never used the collection. I didn't know anything about it, but now they do thanks to the survey. Usability studies are a really great thing to do. We do them on an annual basis with SobekCM for different user groups and different projects. But doing the usability studies, not only do you hear about what your users need, you also understand more about all of the different ways that people are using the collections. There's such an enormous variety, then understanding how they're using it and how they're viewing it really helps in thinking about other opportunities for collaboration, for new projects, and other possibilities in general. Evaluating the usage statistics again. If you see a huge jump, what does that mean? What happened? One time for DLOC, we noticed that the hits jumped really dramatically, and it was because of a phone book. It was a Cuban phone book, and apparently, in doing a lot of research on it, we found out that it was mentioned in a newsletter from a genealogical society. They had sent it out, there had been so much interest from their community, and now there's a genealogical society that's actually one of the DLOC partners. When Mark showed the admin tools and the ability to enter in the user feedback email so that you could have your email listed so that users could contact you with any questions, those questions are a great wealth of data. The different patron inquiries and feedback, sometimes sometimes they're sort of silly emails, but saying I'm not sure how to do something with the system, or sometimes we get a lot for the newspapers where people think they're contacting the actual newspaper publishers asking to have their newspaper delivery stopped or started. But much more of them are people asking, hey, I'm a researcher, I'm interested in X. I was wondering if you had more materials that relate to this topic. Hey, um, I'm a member of the general public, but I'm tracing my family history through this. Can you tell me any more about uh, this topic? So those are really great things to look at and see what else might be of interest for doing different promotional news announcements, and also for assessing what are your different patron needs and how to best support them. So some of the resources linked here are the user survey and the usability reports for different ones that have already been done. And so,
I would say if any of you are thinking about doing usability studies or need help evaluating usage, we're more than happy to help from some of the experience we have. And we can certainly drill down into usage more as well if you're asking more questions about where things came from. So just let us know.
yeah, and on all of this, we're definitely interested in collaborating. Uh, Promotional plans are great things to share. You can collaborate, working with others on it. You can also collaborate by sharing the different plans that you've done and different activities. These are super useful. These are things that everyone's talking about in the digital library communities and the digital humanities communities and the digital scholarship communities. How do we do things better? We've been digitizing, we've been building these great digital collections, but then what do we do with them afterwards, and how do we make the most sense of them for our internal operations and for the maximum benefit for our institutions, our patrons, for everyone involved? And so some of the ways, just sort of to look at the big picture and connections for how does this fit with your collection development plan? If you have a collection development plan for the physical collections, are the digital collections included in that? And how do the digital collections already support what you're doing with the physical collections? So that they're all collections together and it's not two separate things. A promotional plan, do you have a plan for integrating with courses and instruction? Plans for assessment and evaluation? And a plan for collaboration. Project charters are often used in information technology and also in digital scholarship, digital humanities projects to outline what the project is, who's doing what on the project, what the project goals are, why the project is important, and then how the project's actually going to work. Collaboration is great. It definitely enriches us all, but having a framework for doing collaboration makes the collaboration that much more successful, and it just ensures that we all have our eyes on the big picture. And so this is more on things that we've already covered. But collection management, how does this relate to the development, promotion, assessment, and other goals? Obviously, new opportunities. And new opportunities can also be related to digital production and ways of doing the internal workflows you're already doing. How can you bring things together and simplify and integrate your existing processes? Um, and so looking at next steps, what trainings are wanted from this group for patrons? So thinking about project portfolio management, project planning. And John Nimmers, who's also been doing the trainings on this, has done a really wonderful project planning, project management workshop for the Society of Florida Archivists. And so something like that could be of interest for this group, could be of interest for at your own institution for you and supporting your different colleagues and constituents. Um, some of the supports that are needed and are available, we have the SobekCM user group on Google, using Google Groups. For the UF folks, what contents in the IR should be in your collections? What are some of your faculty collaboration opportunities? And it looks like I duplicated the slide. I'm sorry about that, everyone. So, and now Mark, do you have anything to conclude before we move on to questions?
Just we really would like to hear from everybody. If there's any trainings that you'd like us to do, any additional topics. We try to cover the 4 topics we thought would be most relevant to those who are doing curatorial collection management work within the system. But if there's anything else that you realize now or later that you'd like, please shoot us an email and let us know.
And so before we pause for the recording for the questions, our contact information is on this final screen. And please do join the SobekCM discussion group. That's where we're going to be sharing and where we do regularly share information on different trainings, different events that are going on, promotional materials, materials that can be repurposed for the use in your collection. And so now I'm going to stop the recording.